The first time Ren noticed her, the world seemed to tilt slightly, as if the fluorescent hallway lights flickered for him alone. His shoes squeaked against the polished floor of Seiryo High, the late spring sun slanting through the windows. And then she appeared. Mayumi, the kind of girl who seemed to carry sound with her. Laughter followed her down the hall, sneakers tapping rhythm from her dance club, the smell of shampoo. Ren had always thought he was invisible, another figure with books pressed to his chest. But when her sleeve brushed his arm by accident, he looked up, and for a fraction of a heartbeat, her eyes caught his. If you think love stories in school are all the same, wait until you hear this one. Stay until the end. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Ren was 18, a senior, months away from graduation. His parents thought he was too serious. His classmates thought he was simply quiet. The truth was, he lived inside novels more than conversations, filling notebooks with words no one else would read. His sanctuary was the literature club room, a dusty corner with a cracked window and stacks of donated books. Mayumi, on the other hand, was movement itself. She was the kind of girl who stayed after school to rehearse until sweat glued her hair to her forehead, who laughed so hard her friends clutched their stomachs. People called her popular, but she wasn't polished. Her sneakers were scuffed, her bag stuffed with loose papers, her blazer worn at the elbows. She made small mistakes seem charming. That afternoon, the hallway was crowded. Posters fluttered on bulletin boards, voices tangled in echoes. Ren was adjusting his satchel strap when Mayumi rounded the corner, clutching her practice shoes. She almost collided with him. His bag slipped, books spilling across the floor. "Oh, sorry," she gasped, crouching quickly. Her fingers brushed his notebook before he could snatch it. A corner folded under her thumb. He panicked, as if she might see every word. "It's fine," he muttered. But she tilted her head, reading a fragment before he pulled it back. "The heart doesn't break loudly, it whispers. Did you write this?" Ren froze. "It's nothing." Her mouth curved in a smile, not mocking, just curious. "You write poems? That's rare." He shoved the notebook into his bag, ears hot. "It's nothing," he repeated. She rose, still smiling. "I'm Mayumi? Dance club. And you are?" For a moment, he considered staying nameless, but something in her tone disarmed him. "Ren. Literature club." "Ren," she repeated, as if tasting the sound. The bell rang, shrill and final. Her friends were waving down the hall. She backed away, still facing him. "See you around, poet." The word clung to him long after she disappeared into the crowd. That night, Ren sat at his desk, pen hovering over paper. For once, words didn't come easily. He kept hearing her voice, the way she said his name. He wrote a line, crossed it out, wrote another. The silence of his room felt louder than usual. Across town, Mayumi collapsed on her bed, hair damp, textbooks unopened. She replayed the scene, grinning at how awkwardly he clutched his notebook. Something about him felt different from the boys who shouted after her. He looked like he wanted to disappear. That made her curious. The next morning, Ren arrived early, as always, to avoid the crush. He thought the hallway would be empty, but Mayumi was already there, tiptoeing to tape a torn poster back to the board. The paper slipped. He bent automatically, catching it. Their eyes met again. "Ah, poet," she said lightly. "You're early too." Ren held the poster awkwardly. "I don't like crowds." "Me neither," she admitted. "Dance club's all noise. Sometimes I come early just for quiet." He blinked. Quiet was the last word he'd have chosen for her. She fixed the poster, smiled, and left. For the rest of the day, he kept catching himself looking for her, and each time he saw her, it felt like the crowd blurred, leaving just the two of them in focus. Something had begun, fragile but powerful. After that first spark, Ren tried to convince himself it was just coincidence. A girl like Mayumi didn't linger on people like him, yet somehow the coincidences multiplied. She appeared in the library, her uniform jacket tied around her waist, hair damp from practice. She plopped herself across from him with a thud, dropping a juice carton on the table. "You're always here," she said, poking his notebook with her straw. What's so good about words? He wanted to tell her everything, how words gave him shelter, how they shaped the silence he couldn't speak aloud. But instead he shrugged. "I like them." "Then read me something," she pressed. His throat tightened. No one had ever asked. Still, he opened a page and read softly, his voice cracking but steadying as the lines flowed. She listened with an intensity he hadn't expected, chin resting on her palm. When he finished, she clapped lightly. "You're hiding superpowers," she said. "It's not." "It is," she cut in. "Poet powers." The nickname stuck. Over the following weeks, they found small rituals. She'd wait for him after last bell, shoes slung over her shoulder, asking him to walk with her halfway home. Sometimes they sat on the back steps, sharing melon bread. Sometimes they said little, just listening to the hum of the vending machines. Ren discovered Mayumi was full of contradictions. She laughed easily, but her eyes sometimes dimmed when she thought no one was watching. She was popular, yet confessed one evening, "Sometimes, when everyone's shouting, I feel lonelier than ever." He surprised himself by replying, "Me too." They fell into a rhythm of near silences and sudden bursts of laughter. He learned she loved spicy food, but hated math. She learned he wrote not only poems, but little stories about ordinary people. The more time they spent together, the more their worlds overlapped. Rumors began, whispers in hallways about the quiet boy and the dance club star. Ren hated the stares, but Mayumi brushed them off with a grin. "Let them talk," she said. "We know better." He wasn't sure what they knew exactly, but every time her hand brushed his, accidentally almost, his heart raced so hard, he thought the whole school must hear it. One rainy afternoon, they shared an umbrella. The street smelled of wet asphalt. She teased him about his serious face, and he finally smiled, wide enough that she noticed. "You look different when you do that," she whispered. And for once, he didn't hide. By autumn, the air around Seirio High grew cooler, and with it, something in Ren and Mayumi's rhythm shifted. It wasn't immediate, just tiny fissures at first, like cracks spreading across glass. It began with whispers. Ren overheard them by the shoe lockers. Why's she always with him? She could do better. Mayumi laughed it off when he mentioned it, but the words clung to him. He hated how easily they slipped under his skin. Then came the dance festival. Mayumi's team had been preparing for weeks. Posters with her picture lined the halls. Ren sat in the crowd, notebook on his lap, watching her command the stage. She was magnetic, every movement sharp and fluid, sweat glinting under the gym lights. The cheers were deafening. Afterward, as people swarmed her with congratulations, Ren lingered at the edge. She was laughing, flushed, surrounded by boys from the basketball team. One of them, tall, confident, draped an arm casually around her shoulder. She didn't push it away, just smiled and kept talking. Something inside Ren twisted. By the time she finally found him in the crowd, his smile had hardened into something brittle. "Did you see?" she asked, eyes shining. "Yes." His voice was flat. She frowned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," he muttered. But she knew him better now. Later, when they were walking home, silence stretched thick between them. At the corner where their paths split, Ren finally snapped. "You seem to enjoy all that attention." Her eyes widened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You don't even notice how they look at you." "And you do." Her voice sharpened. "Ren, they're my teammates, my friends. You think I'm, what, flirting?" "I don't know," he admitted, bitterness spilling out. It just what?" She crossed her arms. "I can't stop people from talking to me or from liking my dancing. That's who I am." He wanted to take it back, but the words tangled. "And who am I? Just the quiet boy you keep around for fun." Her face flinched, as if struck. For a moment he thought she might cry, but instead she set her jaw. "You think so little of me. Fine. Maybe you don't know me at all." She turned sharply, walking away, her steps quick and furious. Ren stood frozen, guilt surging even as anger burned. He wanted to run after her, but pride anchored him in place. The night pressed heavy, street lamps flickering overhead. For the first time since they'd met, he felt the fragile thread between them snap. That evening, Ren sat at his desk, pen poised above paper. But every word he wrote came out jagged, ugly. The poems wouldn't hold. He tore page after page, the scraps littering his floor like fallen leaves. Across town, Mayumi lay awake, staring at her ceiling. Music played faintly from her phone, but it couldn't drown out his words. "Just the quiet boy you keep around for fun." She hugged her pillow tight, hating the way her chest ached. Neither of them texted. Neither of them slept. And the space between them grew wider. Days bled into weeks, and the air between Ren and Mayumi hardened into silence. They still crossed paths at school, still exchanged glances in the hall, but it was as if an invisible wall had risen between them. Ren drowned himself in writing. His notebook grew thick with verses, but none of them were for her. They were jagged confessions, words he would never say aloud, poems about jealousy, fear, and the terrifying thought of being left behind. He wrote until his hand cramped, but the emptiness in his chest remained. Mayumi, on the other hand, doubled down on dance. She stayed late after class, rehearsing until sweat soaked her clothes and her muscles trembled. She told herself she was doing it for the competition, for her team. But in truth, she was running. From the echo of his voice, from the sharp edge of his doubt. Their friends noticed. At lunch, Mayumi no longer dragged Ren to sit beside her. Ren stopped waiting by the gates. After club activities, even their teachers glanced at them curiously, sensing the change but saying nothing. One rainy evening, Ren found himself wandering the covered walkway outside the gym. Through the glass, he saw Mayumi practicing alone. Music pulsed faintly, her body moving with relentless precision. She stumbled once, knees buckling, but forced herself upright, biting her lip. Ren pressed a hand against the cold glass. He wanted to walk in, to say "I'm sorry," to tell her how his jealousy had eaten him alive. But the thought of her turning away froze him. So he stayed hidden, watching her dance, until the lights flickered off. That night, Mayumi scrolled through her phone. She opened their old messages, thumb hovering over the keyboard. "I miss you," she typed, then deleted it. Typed again. "Can we talk?" Deleted that too. Finally, she locked her screen and buried the phone under her pillow. Autumn leaves scattered across the empty streets, carried by the wind. Neither of them reached out. Neither of them knew how, but both of them, lying awake in separate rooms, whispered the same thought into the dark. Please don't let this be the end. Winter crept in quietly, blanketing the town in cold gray skies. For Mayumi, the days blurred into a routine of silence and survival. Every morning she braced herself for whispers in the hallways. Every evening she endured her parents' arguments. And every night she lay awake, hands resting on her stomach, feeling the faintest flutter of life within her. She had never felt so alone. Friends drifted away, teachers' gazes lingered with judgment, and her parents treated her like a mistake they couldn't erase. The boy who once promised her forever had vanished into shadows of doubt and pride. Ren kept his distance, but distance didn't mean indifference. He caught glimpses of her in the corridors, shoulders hunched, hair falling over tired eyes. Once, he saw her sitting under the oak tree they used to meet at, clutching her notebook, but never writing a word. His chest tightened, guilt gnawing at him, but he walked past without stopping. Rumors spread like wildfire. Whispers followed Mayumi wherever she went, sharp enough to cut through her defenses. She learned to bite her lip, to hold back tears until she was alone. But at night, when the world was quiet, the tears always came. Ren poured his torment into poetry, the pages of his notebook dark, with words he couldn't say to her face. He wrote about betrayal, about fear, about the cowardice of a boy too weak to stand beside the girl he loved. Sometimes he tore the pages out and burned them, watching the flames devour his confessions. Mayumi clung to fragments of hope. She sketched in the margins of her textbooks tiny drawings of the life she dreamed of, a place where she wasn't alone, where the child inside her was welcomed with love. But every day that dream felt further away. One snowy evening, Ren passed by the park and saw her sitting on a bench, breath fogging in the freezing air. She looked small, fragile against the winter night. His heart screamed at him to go to her, to wrap his coat around her shoulders, to beg for forgiveness. But his feet stayed rooted. The fear of rejection weighed heavier than the snow on the branches. So he turned and walked away, leaving her silhouette fading in the distance. Both of them carried the same ache, but neither could bridge the silence. And in that silence, the fracture between them deepened. Spring returned with cherry blossoms drifting across Seiryo High's courtyard, their petals scattering like fragments of a promise. Graduation day had arrived. Students gathered in pressed uniforms, cameras flashed, laughter and tears mingled in the air. Ren stood among his classmates, cap in hand, but his eyes searched only for one face. For months he had lived with the weight of silence, every word unsaid, pressing on his chest. Today, he couldn't let it end like this, not with her walking away into a future where he didn't exist. He found Mayumi standing alone under the blooming trees, diploma clutched to her chest. She looked radiant, but tired, like someone who had fought too many battles. For a moment, fear rooted him again. Then he remembered the first time her sleeve brushed his in that crowded hallway, how her voice had called him poet, how everything had begun with a spark. He couldn't let that spark die. He walked toward her, each step heavy but certain. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Ren," she whispered. He stopped in front of her, breath catching. "I've been a coward," he said, voice rough. "I let jealousy and fear make me push you away. I wrote 100 apologies, but none of them matter unless I say them now. I don't want to lose you." Her eyes shimmered, and for a moment she didn't speak. The wind stirred petals between them. Finally she exhaled, a trembling laugh breaking the tension. "You're late, poet. I waited so long." Ren's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." Mayumi stepped closer, so close he could smell the faint trace of her shampoo, just as he had that first day. "We're not perfect, Ren. We fight, we break. But I'd rather be broken with you than whole without you." Tears blurred his vision as she slipped her hand into his. It was small, warm, and real. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if the world might end if he let go. Around them, classmates cheered, cameras clicked. But in that moment, none of it mattered. "From now on," he whispered into her hair, "we walk together, no matter what comes." Mayumi nodded against his chest, and for the first time in months, peace settled between them. Above, the cherry blossoms swirled like confetti, soft and fleeting. The future was uncertain, their path littered with challenges. But as they stepped forward side by side, They carried something stronger than fear, something that would outlast the storms. Not perfection, not ease, but love. Real, flawed, enduring love.